All right, my name is Jack Kluempke. I'm a solar business advisor at the Department of Commerce. And as my friend Lynn said, I'm a result of the Made in Minnesota legislation that they passed that provided an opportunity for commerce to hire somebody from the industry, which I think, to Stacy and the other people there, is kind of key. You asked me to talk about the class. Are there any students here that are taking that class? Or those couple? 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's a PV 201 site assessment class. Starts tomorrow. It's 2 full Saturdays and a Friday night. It's really, I think, one of the classes that anybody in the solar industry that's actually working in the industry should take, because it teaches you about the sales process and the finance part of it, along with the technical part. So I think it's really a good class. But I'm going to talk about, okay, there's a rich. There we go. Overview. Made in Minnesota program. What we've done and what our successes have been. We've had some failures. We're having some ongoing conversations, and I think we've got a pretty bright future in manufacturing here in Minnesota. So to recap 2014, when we started, we had 2 PV manufacturers, 10K and Silicon Energy. We had 2 thermal hot air modules, R-Real and SolarWay 6000. And we had 1 solar hot water manufacturer, Solar Skies up in LA. Recap 2015, we now have 4 PV manufacturers. We were able to attract Kluempke and iTech. That's amazing. Both of these companies are manufacturing headquartered elsewhere. They moved to Minnesota because of the Made in Minnesota program. So they've opened up satellite manufacturing facilities here. We have 2 solar thermal hot air modules yet, R-Real and SolarWay. But R-Real just recently acquired SolarWall. Anybody familiar with SolarWall? SolarWall is a building integrated hot air system. It's really a neat system. It goes like on the side of the school, it covers the whole wall. It's built into the HVAC system. They're installing on poultry barns, a lot of egg related things we can do with it.
Talk turkey.
Talk turkey. Turkey industry is going to love this. So we've got some very high hopes for the solar world. But we did lose Solar Skies. Their headquarters pulled them back to Massachusetts. We're looking for ways to get them back. Let's keep our fingers crossed, because we really want these guys here. They were a good company to have. Randy was a good guy, good people. Okay, so why are they coming here? Minnesota's got a lot to offer these companies. The ways of money, not so much. Minnesota doesn't put out a lot of money to attract these companies. We don't give them cash to move here. We don't buy any buildings. We don't do that stuff. But we do have a positive solar environment. We've got some very strong policies. We've got a great working relationship with the legislation. We've got a good working relationship with utilities, which if you go to other states, they'll tell you it's amazing that they even sit at the same table with you. So we've got a really good environment here with utilities. And we've got organizations like MRES and NCL that are promoting this. When you sit down and talk to these companies, and try to get them to think about Minnesota, one of the first questions they ask is, what kind of workforce do you have? And as well known, Minnesota's got some great dedicated workers. It's not notorious, but what's a good word for it? I mean, we're well known for good quality workers.
Notorious is good.
Notorious? Well, I know because when I used to work construction and travel across the country, they wanted people from Minnesota. You put Minnesota in your application, you're in construction, anywhere in the country, you got a job. Deep and diverse value chain. Minnesota, we've identified over 500 companies that are located in Minnesota that are in some way affiliated with solar. Whether they're supplying the rails, the glue, chemicals, whatever. So if you're looking to locate a new company somewhere, it's much easier to walk across the street to procure your components than it is to have to ship all your parts from halfway across the country. So when we sit down and talk to these guys, say, what do you think about Minnesota? That's one of the key things they're looking at. Can I get all my stuff here? And that's one of the benefits of bringing to the table. Centrally located. This is one of the best ones. Okay, when we look at most of these companies, when we're dealing with a company from, say, Taiwan, they're looking to get into the American market. They want to start distributing through North America. We are centrally located. It is now cheaper to ship a container to Duluth than it is to ship it, drop it off on the West Coast, and shipped by truck or rail. So when they're looking at distributing the components, we look really, really good. We've got excellent air, excellent rail, excellent highways. So if you're looking to distribute, we can help that. And then certainly, if you're going to invest millions of dollars in a company and move your workforce across the country, you want to know that your policies and everything else is going to be in place for at least some period of time. And that's what Renewable has done. It's 10 years, it's fully funded for 10 years. But they're not moving here just because of that. You're not going to survive in manufacturing if you're counting on just our market. It's just not enough. It's getting bigger, it's looking good. Can't do it with just that alone. So Maine, Minnesota just provides us with an opportunity to get their attention, sit down at the table, and talk about all that other stuff that's on the previous slide. It just gets us to see that table. It doesn't guarantee us any success. But if you're starting out, and you can say, okay, there's $15 million in the pool, we can get a third of that, that's $5 million. Your startup costs in the company, that's kind of a big hump. So if you can kind of give them that edge to get over that hump so they can start competing on a global market with the product. And that's why they're coming to us. That's why they're starting the conversation. Missed opportunities. We've had a couple. There was a learning curve. And one of the biggest learning curves was we started, at the time when we started talking to them, they were the number 2 manufacturer in the world. We got to the table a little late, but we did get to the table. And what they were looking for, aside from the solar, aside from site, they needed 20,000 kVA of power. Minnesota's got cheap electric. We could provide that.
What company are you guys about?
Can I say that? It was Trina. We were down to, there were 5 states. We're looking to move Minnesota. They needed 500,000 gallons of water a day. Minnesota's got good water. We've got plenty of it. But when you're taking that much water in, you also have to clean that much water out. We have a couple issues there, but we worked it out. 500 cubic meters of natural gas per day for manufacturing. But they were going to hire 4,000 employees. This would have been the largest company we ever attracted in Minnesota in operation. This would have been huge.
The Ford plant employed 2,000 people at its peak, just as a frame of reference.
And if they came, they wanted a manufacturing hub. They wanted all their suppliers to move with them. That would have been an additional 2,000 jobs. Huge opportunity. We were one of 5 states left at the table. Our closest competitor had offered them $35 million in free building tax rate, and they didn't get it. I think it's down to 2 states, one is New York, and it looks like they're moving upstate New York. This would have been huge. But we never would have had that conversation had we not had this legislation and this cool, really exciting political environment we have here in Minnesota with solar. The issue is it goes back to certainty. We've got to keep. And part of that, in my opinion, is people like you get educated, talk to your reps in the legislation, educate them. Okay, so what we learned, one, we got to be at the table a little sooner. That's the key. We were a little late with Trina. I think if we would have been there 6-8 months earlier, we might have a better shot to give us a little time to put a proposal together. Really, we wrote the proposal in less than a week. So it was a rush job. Which agencies we get involved? Lynn and I and Kari Health and Dee meet every 2 to 3 weeks for sure. Looking back though, I think we should have the transportation department involved from the get-go. Distribution was a big key. We should have Dolly involved from the get-go. That was a big key. And most of the competition, the other 5 states that they were dealing with, 3 governors flew out to meet with them. And the other states sent like 3 or 4 major metropolitan mayors. They dealt with them on the phone, they never met face to face.
I mean, the governor of New York went to China. Went to China to meet with, their company, toured their facility, you know what I'm saying? So,
It's competitive.
face-to-face, handshake, real people to real people. You can't replace that. Sorry, just
No,
gotta
that's
say, you can't just be sitting here, thinking that, 4,000 workers are gonna show up.
This gets attention. You show that to a governor, and like I said, we were a little late to the table. We could have made that happen. I'm a rookie at it. I'm learning. Okay. We need to do our due diligence. I've been in the position for just over a year. The Department of Employment and Economic Development, they don't have a dedicated solar. Well, no, Carrie is now pretty much our dedicated deed person. So we've got people in the agencies now that are focusing on it. So we're starting to get our wheels greased and kind of know what's going on. It's getting better. But we also have to research these companies. We got to go where they are. We got to know who's looking. Getting to the table late with Trina was because we didn't know they were looking. So it's important that we travel and we meet these people and we go to SPI and we go to the conventions and we find out, we listen, we got to talk, we got to find out who's looking for what kind of modules, how do we get them here. And we got to get to the decision makers faster. Okay? And what that means is usually they send out the first wave of people to talk to you, and they're kind of just doing their homework and they're looking to see what you offer. But how they convey what we have to their decision makers, I think is a little suspect. Did they properly convey what kind of workforce we have, how educated our workforce is? And if you're going to hire 4,000 people, the turnover is a really big deal. If you've got an educated workforce and you don't have to keep training these people over and over again, that can really cut down your overhead and add your bottom line. We have that. Was that properly conveyed to the decision makers? We don't know. We need to get to the table real quick. Okay, continuing conversations. We're still talking to two pretty decent PV manufacturers. One's a foreign company that's looking to move here, and the other one already has a facility here in the United States, but they need to expand. Their question is, do we expand where we are, or do we look at Minnesota, want to increase the distribution? We've got some things to offer. We're having a good conversation, but these things take a little bit of time. We're also looking for a way to keep solar skies, well, at least get them back, or to attract a new solar hot water manufacturer. Solar thermal is kind of it's a tough market. There's not a lot going on. I think we've got some policies we're working on. Stacy is doing a really good job trying to push the thermal market. We've got a couple of working groups that are working on it. But having a manufacturer would be a big deal. It's going to be hard to get them here with our thermal market. Cell manufacturer. The 4 PV manufacturers we have now would look at the cell manufacturer. I am talking to one cell manufacturer. It's very iffy. I don't think I'm going to get much headway with these guys, but at least when we started having a conversation, I think it's going to lead to others. Cell manufacturing is very high tech. We employ a lot of people, but there are environmental concerns. There's a lot of water that goes into the manufacturing of cells, but it's something we want to look at. The new products. In the last 2 months, I've had conversations with a company that has developed a solar PV window. It's transparent. It's awesome. It's still in design, but they want to come to Minnesota. He's from the Netherlands, somewhere out there. He's got roots in Minnesota, from Rochester. It's really cool. I think it's a game changer for a lot of stuff. So we're looking at them. And another one, which is a tracking AC module. It's not a silicon-based module. It's completely different. If the technology pans out to what they tell me we'll do, it'll be a solar game changer. He also has ties to Minnesota. He was an engineer from NASA. He's on the satellites. Well, that's kind of cool. So our focus, what are we currently looking at? Well, one, we've got 4 PV manufacturers, 2 thermal hot air manufacturers. We got to make sure that those guys are successful. Well, that's kind of our focus. What do we do to make sure that the people we already have are making it? really not actively looking for any smaller PV manufacturers. If we can get one of the big dogs, we're going after them. But right now, we're just kind of focusing on making sure these guys get the ball rolling. And I think they're doing pretty well so far. And then focus on our value chain. Like I said, we identified 500 companies. We want to increase that made in Minnesota brand. Not just the module. I mean, we've got Alexander Industries, they do rail. We've got Renewable, they make the casing for the inverters. American Polywater, they do the silicon for the mounting. And we've got a number of companies that we want to help. And to do that, we kind of like to increase the domestic content. That's how much of the content of the current manufacturers are using from Minnesota. It's hard for Minnesota companies to compete, but if we can get all four of these guys to get together and say, you know what, let's all four buy our rails from Alexander Industries, we can create some economies of scale and drive some pricing. And then highlight those companies that are already here. Let's introduce Alexander. Let's introduce Renewable, all the other manufacturers. Let's have that conversation. We were supposed to meet with a guy from Arizona last week about Alec. Canceled. He's coming back up soon. But we're out there working on it. Then we need to identify where new business opportunities are emerging. Business opportunities. There's lots. I mean, it's really an unbelievable time for solar here in Minnesota. And it's new technology. There are battery backup storage systems that are really becoming close to being game changers. We've got racking. What are some of the other new technologies coming up? There are solar shingles.
Yep. You mentioned the windows.
Yep.
Building integrated PVs.
Yep. I just read a couple weeks ago that there was a solar paint. You can paint and produce current.
So how is the U of M involved in these emerging technologies? Are they involved with R&D?
Yes, they are.
You want to talk about Ellen's job?
Yeah, I mean, those of you that have been following, the industry and renewable energy for years have, watched and admired the work of Senator Ellen Anderson. She's now at the University of Minnesota, heading up a whole, process. I believe it's called Division for Renewable Energy Transition. So that's a really big deal. And honestly, it's been one of the components that's been missing. When we've gone and applied, Stacy and I were talking about this yesterday, at lunch at the CERTS conference, that, a couple of the funding opportunities that we thought may have matured into something may not have gone forward because we didn't have as much active participation from the university. Ellen Anderson is going to bring that. So that's going to be a really important part of what we're going to be doing now. That's not the only place where there's some activity. We have 3M's doing a lot of R&D work. There's R&D work with Renewable. There's R&D work with a lot of these companies in the private sector. But you're right. You got to have the University of Minnesota and MRES. We had some discussions with Lowell Rasmussen, who's been really pushing hard, at the MRES campus, around a whole variety of different solar technologies, PV, thermal. So we'll see how that matures. But you're right, that's a good question.
And there's some now the U of M has a class called MOT. It's a Masters of Technology course. They've been doing this for a couple of years, and I think they just graduated 28 students out of this class. These are high-end technical jobs. Instead of an MBA, it's a Masters of Technology degree. And the class just got back. They toured North Korea and China. They're looking at different technology companies and trying to get them to come here for different reasons. But they're all Minnesota-based students. Actually, I shouldn't say students. Most of them work for high-tech businesses here already. So they're just trying to increase their level of knowledge. There's a lot happening in that area, but again, it requires a lot of funding. So trying to find that funding is usually
Jack, were you just trying to see if we were awake?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, South Korea.
I thought it was
No. No, South Korea. How many years? I said North Korea because my son had issue at school. He got in a little trouble. Because he said, well, the communists in the school because they had the flag up. It was kind of funny. I didn't know.
He'd never get in trouble because of his hair.
But no, he wears a shirt because it's communist suck. I got an issue. Okay.
That'd be tough for all of us in this room.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. So in looking at Minnesota, I think the future's bright. I'm a very optimistic type of guy. I think we've got a lot going for us. We do have some issues, some policy concerns that we got to deal with. I think most of it comes down to educating the decision makers. I think that's a big key, and Lynn does a really good job on that. We know this is a work in progress. What we see the industry looking like today is not what it's going to be looking like 10 years from now. So as we start looking at, especially driving policy, we got to write stuff that's going to fit, not, is solar going to look like the panel on your roof with a simple inverter 10 years from now? It's probably going to be a completely different system. We got to be able to adapt to that. So we're working hard to help guide that and to ensure its success. But it is a group effort. It's going to take NC, it's going to take MRES, it's going to take Commerce, D, Dole, everybody else to get on the same page. So with that said, we got a hockey stick. That's my last slide. It's growing. In my opinion, we can't stop solar success. Right now, it's just a question of how much success
Where's it
it is.
go?
Yeah. How much do we want? Do we want to lead or do we want to follow? I think Minnesota's a leader. Stacy and I were with the SPI, Solar Power International. And really, when we introduce ourselves as being from Minnesota, it's amazing how many people want to come and talk to us about what's happening in Minnesota. The value of solar tariff, stuff we're doing, community solar gardens, hot topic out there. But we're on the map. Everybody's talking to us. They want to know what's going on. It's kind of fun. It's exciting. Okay. So that's it. Questions? Yeah.
Why did it go down in 2013?
Solar rewards. I mean, there was kind of a little lapse in the incentives. It was kind of booked and then kind of got cut off. It just didn't get installed that year. So that graph is everything that got installed that
Oh, so
year.
then,
It was
so
just
this
kind of
year,
late.
so this year it's going to be
Yeah.
flat. Okay.
See how this went up and then it came down? This is kind of bullish,
Right.
right? Okay.
You know, what Jack said about certainty, kind of go back to the policy discussion. We need to be certain, and folks in this room can help us with that, to not, create chatter. When people start looking to states to decide, are they going to put a manufacturing facility here? Are they going to put a component manufacturer here? Are they going to do a utility scale development? Are they going to come and become part of, the process of community solar gardens? They do that when they have a sense that there is certainty, that this market is stable, that it's not going to go away, in a year, 2 years, 5 years. So, it's really critical for people in this room to convey to your legislators, don't mess with the policies that are in place. Don't mess with community solar gardens. Don't mess with Minnesota, made in Minnesota. Don't mess with the solar energy standard. Keep in place those elements that have made Minnesota arguably, yeah, it is. I mean, anywhere we go, outside of Minnesota, and, I've had an opportunity to speak in other parts of the country, it is really quite the phenomenon. And we need to keep that up. We've done a good job. We can't sit back and say, okay, it doesn't take any effort to keep this moving. It does take a lot of effort. And, you know, anybody that's been paying attention to what's going on, you know, the legislature knows that we have a House that is, you know, less receptive, you know, to some of our policies than in the past. So if you have an opportunity to talk to your legislator, and like Janet and I were talking about, you know, take those people that are good, steady, reliable votes and turn them into champions. You know, my representative is Karen Clark. I mean, you know, she's been there for years. But, you know, she and I are having discussions about how she can be even more effective. So, you know, you can't just say, okay, you know, I have to ignore, or we can ignore those people that are, you know, working with us. And if you've got people that aren't, you know, we'll give you talking points. We've had a number of people in Mencia that have gone and talked to their representatives who are less than supportive. But they've gone in, they've brought some really good information, their businesses, their constituents, they talk to their reps, their senators, and, you know, we'll see.